pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome two of our visitors, Ron Theodore from the Board of Finance, Phil Sheen, Board of Finance, Mark Gears out in the hall from the Board of Finance, Mike Perkins, RTM, Paul Goldstein, RTM, Pat Theodore, RTM, and Rich Muckle, RTM. And our new reporter from the day, Ben Kale. Tonight is a special meeting, and what that means is that we have to stick with the agenda as it is posted. And as you note, there's no action items we're reviewing, so we will not have any motions tonight. We can discuss items and perhaps form a consensus that would form the basis for a motion at a subsequent meeting, but tonight is purely review. And I would ask the members of the audience who may have questions or comments to hold those questions or comments until we complete our review and move to that section of the meeting. Having said that, go ahead, Tom.
All right. I'd like to welcome everybody. Good evening, Board of Ed members, elected officials, administrators, teachers, and district staff. I want to thank our excellent team for their hard work in the development of this budget over the last several months. From our staff at the schools to our administrators, department supervisors, central office, all have put in many hours of hard work, hopefully for the benefit of our students. I'd like to specifically acknowledge Craig Powers, Joe Mancini, Kathy Ballone, Cam Teneski in the business office, Karen Kopek in the business office, Jennifer Jones in Mr. Powers' office, and certainly Caroline Whitaker for their countless hours of assistance and hard work over the last several months. I believe that the proposed budget continues both our commitment to maintain a high-quality education for our students while being responsible and careful about the financial resources available. I mention each year that our budgets always come down to needs versus wants. This is a needs-based budget. This is a budget that encourages teaching of the highest quality and provides for the necessary professional development to support district initiatives and our new 5-year strategic plan. This proposal preserves class sizes and course offerings, a strong extracurricular program, and an investment in professional development and curriculum renewal. My goal tonight on behalf of our entire team is to not only show you numbers, but also how those numbers translate into a great education for our students and families here in Waterford. The funds we receive each year lead to our consistent efforts to continue to progress as a district. We have much to be proud of in our schools. We have a high level of teaching and learning occurring each day. When our staff and students present at our board meetings, I believe you see evidence of that great work. I'd like to share some highlights of that great work and how the budget translates into programs, offerings, and a staff that wants what's best for students. We're in the first year of our new strategic plan. As all of you know, the result of 18 months of work by a school community committee of 22 people. Our plan this year has been widely publicized, distributed, and discussed at all levels. We've begun to clearly align goals and work in the district from the board level to classroom practice. A district data team has been formed in alignment with our belief as a district that sound decision-making is predicated on evidence and information. Next year's fiscal 19 budget continues the goals and objectives of the strategic plan, which I will highlight throughout. Our work continues to focus on 4 main areas. Our continued commitment to meet the needs of all students, academically, socially, emotionally, and mentally. Our commitment to build the capacity of our staff and ensure they have the necessary skills and knowledge to meet students' needs. Education has changed significantly over the last several decades, and we know we must adapt and continue to innovate. Promoting our good work in all the positive aspects of our district is vital to our mission. Education is a competitive environment, and families have many choices where to send their children. We must continue to be aggressive and deliberate in making known the great teaching and learning occurring in our schools. At a time when many districts are delaying important curriculum revisions and instructional progress, we continue to revise our curriculum regularly and push best practice in our classrooms. We are piloting a math workshop model K-5 this year. Reader's Workshop and Writer's Workshop that's been successful at the K-5 level is now being pushed up to the middle school. Grading reform and a shift towards mastery-based learning is underway at the secondary level. We will be one of the first high schools in the state this year to adopt the new State Department of Ed seal of biliteracy on our high school diplomas for students who meet the criteria of being biliterate. These are just a few examples of our continued push for all students to reach their potential. As many of you know, we launched our new College and Career Pathways program this year. It's an opportunity for our students, high school students, to study areas of interest at a deep and meaningful level. This was implemented at no new cost. We look forward to expanding this program to recognize students so that they'd be able to convey to colleges that they've completed a pathway during their high school experience. There's an old saying that if you're not moving forward, you're moving backward. We know we must continue to look at the most innovative schools in the country to see how we can adapt what they're doing to our situation. For the past 2 school years, our middle school and high school have participated in 2 major endeavors, including a community of practice with 13 other districts around the state on mastery-based learning, and also joining a New England network of schools that is on the cutting edge of mastery-based learning and grading reform called the League of Innovative Schools. As you know from an excellent presentation this fall at a board meeting, our pre-K program launch has been very successful. We are engaging 36 youngsters, and it's quite the sight, each day in a model of special education students and age-appropriate peer role models. Parent feedback has been extremely positive, and I'll share a little bit more about that later on. This is a slide I know all of us are very proud of. Our students have access to over 20 different courses to obtain college credit while in high school. You can see the data that our students are accessing these courses successfully and at high rates. Over the last 3 school years, we've seen a 128% increase in this area. Challenging our top-level students is as important as meeting the needs of students who require extra support. We are several years in on enhancing our intervention model for students' academic and behavioral needs. We've worked hard to develop protocols that will allow for standardization across all our schools. We've launched a sensory room, that would be the top picture, for our students who are on the autism spectrum. It is programs like this that allow us to educate students in Waterford schools that may have otherwise been outplaced into a private program at high cost. Our efforts to respond so that all students reach their potential continues to adapt, whether it be math support, redesigning studies halls, and expanding summer programs. If students aren't able to have their social and emotional needs met, their chances of mastering academic content and skills is nearly impossible. Our board has had a long-standing goal and priority to continue to design and implement programs to meet the social and emotional learning needs of students. We know we cannot do this alone, and we work with many community partners in these vital areas, some of them represented on this slide. We know that by providing our staff the proper training, professional development, and learning opportunities, it benefits our students. 2 years ago, I shared a full commitment to give our staff a greater voice in their professional development. That's an opportunity that continues to grow. We know that high-quality professional development is important. We know that quality professional development has to be tailored to teachers' needs, and those needs vary greatly in a pre-K to 12 district. As a district, we focused on how we're utilizing data, our PLC time, and maximizing the impact that time can have on teaching and learning. We're in our 3rd cohort of a Teacher Leadership Academy, and as I mentioned, we launched our district data team this year. We know that high-quality professional development is important. We have a very active professional learning community that is made up primarily of teachers and some administrators, and that is under the leadership of Mr. Powers. That committee assesses our PD needs and designs our PD time on a quarterly basis. We have expertise in this district that we often utilize through our EdCamp model. Beyond that, we've engaged some of the top consultants in the country in the areas of math and language arts and now science. The enhancements in our PD system are proof positive that our teachers are taking a greater role in the direction of our district. We need to push the envelope and respond to the new norm. This is a stat that I share often, that 65% of the jobs of the kids that are in kindergarten through 5th grade don't even exist yet. And we know what many of those jobs are that didn't exist even 10 years ago. Under the leadership of our tech coaches, Mr. Crane, and our teacher-led district tech committee, technology thrives here, not only from an equipment and infrastructure standpoint, but from an instructional standpoint. From classes we offer our students, starting in kindergarten, and learning opportunities for our staff. For the second year in a row, we are able to offer 25 of our teachers an official Google Educator certification program, which was actually held today. That will only benefit our teachers and students in the long run. Our team is very proud of our parents and family engagement. Parent engagement takes many forms in our district. What we know is that our parents are engaged in their child's education and our schools in a variety of ways. We held our second annual Parent Academy night this year. Morning and evening workshops in our schools are the norm. Many programs that shine a spotlight on our schools and programs are held each year. Positive parent feedback is critical in continuing to progress as a district. Our parents take surveys every year. Those surveys are turned into school-level goals. It takes a community to educate a child. We know that our partners must extend beyond our 5 schools and central office. The demands in education and on children are higher than ever, and that we know maintaining community partnerships is so important. Some of our most important partners are our town departments, as you know. Other partners are in business and industry. I believe that the proposed budget continues both our commitment to maintain a high-quality education and judicious financial management. The goal in this development of this recommended budget was to maintain current programs while still progressing as a district. With that said, it is a budget that responsibly recognizes the current financial climate. What does this budget actually accomplish? It will fund our new 5-year strategic plan, and again, I'll reference those highlights throughout the presentation. It will continue to provide a high-quality education, as evidenced by some of the previous slides you've seen tonight. It will maintain current programs and offerings. It will continue reasonable class sizes in accordance with the board guidelines set this fall. It will preserve athletic and extracurricular programs and quality professional development, sustain our curriculum renewal cycle, and certainly take care of our buildings. We don't take for granted that there's an endless supply of money. We just know that's not the case. Cost containment efforts are vital to our continued success. I thought it would be important to share some of these strategies up front before we dive into the numbers. Just this past fall, we negotiated 2 major contracts below statewide trend. We will realize long-term savings in the teacher's contract, and I'm going to go through that a little bit more in the future in this presentation. High-deductible health plans are now mandatory for 2 of our unions. We've had a concerted public relations and targeted marketing campaign to reduce out-of-district tuitions. Mr. Mancini and Mr. Miner have been working diligently for over a year on the pursuit of a gas line from Route 1 up to Clark Lane Middle School. It's been cost prohibitive, but due to weekly would badgering be the right word?
Good term.
We got some great news that it looks like they have found some funds and grant funds within their avenues that would extend the gas line from Route 1 up to Clark Lane Middle School at no cost to the town or the school district. It's going to be a lot more efficient in the long run and cost effective to have gas as our main source of fuel at Clark Lane rather than fuel oil. And many other energy efficient measures such as LED lighting and whatnot. We continue to explore solar power in conjunction with the town planning department as well as microgrids and cogeneration. Where do we spend our money? How does the budget really break down? It's no surprise, it's a slide that I share each year. Over 3/4 of our budget is in salaries and benefits. School districts are a people organization. It's not unusual. National averages are in the 80 to 85% range. Another 15% of our budget is tuitions, heat and utilities, and transportation. The remaining 7% of all other are the other items in our budget, some of which are fixed costs, and others are to address district needs. Let's break it down a little bit further. In this 2.15% budget, 1.88% of that is fixed costs and contractual obligations. All other line items in the budget, a little over 0.25%, or about $128,000, comprises the remaining portion of the budget. Total budget increase requested that I'm recommending on behalf of our team is 2.15%. Let me provide a little further context. If we look at the total budget increase of 2.15, 0.18 of that is due to the new MOU on community use of schools, an MOU which I wholeheartedly support and believe it was the right thing to do. But to put that in perspective, the net Board of Ed budget increase is below 2%. Budget drivers. Breaking down the budget in a different way. How do we get to $1 million increase, 2.15%? Certainly salaries is our biggest driver at a little over $500,000. That's a 1.87% increase over the previous school year. Well, we know our contractual obligations for each union are anywhere in the 2.25% to 2.75%. That means there's been other ways to offset salary increases. That comprises 56% of the increase to our budget for next year. Benefits is our next biggest driver, primarily health insurance, but there are other insurances and benefits and other contractual payouts that are part of that. That's a 3.94% increase over last year and adds another almost 25% to our request. Heat, energy, fuel is up about $15,000. You might recall that was a sizable increase last year. We've seen negotiated contracts, locking in with the town, things of that sort to mitigate. It's about a 1% increase over last year. Tuition, actually seeing a decrease in tuition, which is incredible in this day and age. I'm going to talk a little bit about that when we get to the tuition line. Decrease of about 0.5%. And you factor in that our magnet charter outplacement tuitions normally see a 3 or 4% escalator. To see a decrease in this line obviously tells us that we're doing things right in terms of mitigating those costs. Transportation of $61,000, 3%. That's per contract that went out to bid last year. All other lines in our budget, as I mentioned, about $128,000, up about 3.75%. It's the other 12% of the increase. That's how we get to $1 million increase. I'm not going to read each one of these, but again, looking at what those drivers are, salaries obviously is our biggest driver, health insurance next biggest driver, and then magnet and charter special education costs. Those are the services that those schools charge us for special ed students who attend those schools. I mentioned the community use of schools offset, student transportation, and you can see all the way down the line. See, it's a $1.2 million increase, which means obviously we reduced in other areas. I mentioned the $100,000 all other lines in our budget. Of that, about $105,000 are needs. Again, I'm going to go through these in greater detail in our budget, from software to social studies curriculum implementation, maintenance, service contracts, equipment, and so on. Again, I'm going to on each of these as I go through the entire budget. Line items are reduced. We reduced 98 line items from last year. Some of those notable lines, you saw the tuition decrease, $171,000. We reduced legal services, and so on. 53% of the lines in this budget have been reduced from fiscal 18, or flat. I'm going to go into greater detail. Instructional services. This is primarily comprised of certified salaries, primarily contractual increases. In this budget, we've reduced the overall number of certified staff by 1.3 FTEs. FTE stands for full-time equivalents. We've reduced 0.8 in physical education at the middle school and 0.5 in high school social studies, primarily due to declining enrollment. This budget does include funding for a third pre-K teacher to support the continued migration of special ed pre-K students from magnet schools. I want to talk a little bit about the WFCT contract savings. While it will be several years before we see any substantial impact in our budget, it is worth noting the cost mitigation of this contract in our budget moving forward. We do want to thank the WFCT for the professional and respectful approach this fall in negotiations that allowed us to negotiate such a deal. In essence, that deal for new teachers has reduced the top salary by approximately 4%. If we had the contract we negotiated right now with this budget, our salary line would be nearly $700,000 lower than it is. This is going to have a real long-term impact on the board and the town. As more teachers turn over, because this is a deal that applies primarily to new teachers, the rate of savings increases. We'll see $100,000 a year of cost avoidance by 2022, climbing to $325,000, $500,000 by the 20-year mark, over $840,000 a year. So over $8 million over the next 20 years in real savings. I mentioned pre-K. As I mentioned, there's a funding for a third pre-K teacher to accommodate the additional special education pre-K students and their peer role models. We are projecting 50 pre-K students next year in our schools, with approximately 25 of those being special education. This year, our average cost per student at the magnet provider for our pre-K students, so we still have some pre-K students, and they're allowed by law to choose a magnet provider, but our special ed pre-K students attending magnet schools, the average cost of a child receiving pre-K services is $46,000 per student. So to develop an in-district program is fiscally sound. If those 25 students next year were being served at a magnet provider, this could cost us approximately $1.2 million. As you can see by the slide and by the presentation to the board this fall, this program is off to a very successful start, and parents are pleased. Support services. This represents contracted increases for all non-certified bargaining groups. We do see a reduction of a secretary at Clark Lane Middle School. We do see an increase of 0.5 clerical in building and grounds, which includes a slight shift of FTEs from the food service budget, which is a self-sustaining budget. We do see 2.0 FTEs paraprofessionals to support Waterford High School and our Avery Point transition program for our students ages 18 to 21. These needs are based on IEPs. Employee benefits. Health insurance increases this year are accounting for the largest portion of the overall increase in this line. You will notice the asterisk on health as we have a meeting on Tuesday to finalize this number. We do see an increase in FICA as salaries increase. FICA, which is the employer's responsibility, also increases. We have seen some positive favorability in rates for long-term disability and life insurance. Contracted services. We share a teacher of the blind with Groton. Person is a Groton teacher. We do pay a portion of their salary that's contained in this line. You will see that professional development and curriculum development are level funded. If you want to spend a few minutes talking about line 330, other professional technical services, sizable increase. Included in this line are the increases in the cost of special education at magnet and charter schools, as I mentioned previously. These are services such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech, behavioral analysis, and para support for our special education students at magnet and charter schools. Magnet providers continue to increase special education service costs at their schools at substantial rates. This is being also driven by the IEPs of students attending those schools. You will see we are reducing legal next year due to less negotiations with unions. Transportation, as I mentioned, went out to bid last year. We locked into a 5-year contract at 3% a year. You will see that transportation supplies, which is mainly fuel for buses in our van fleet, is level funded as we locked in at a favorable rate. Insurance, these are other important but minor in the overall scheme of the budget. But we see positive favorability in rates for liability and fire insurance. Communications. Over the years, the installation of fiber has allowed us to eliminate things such as landlines. Increase in this particular group is due to the reduction of a state E-rate grant. That helps us offset the cost of communication. So it's a reduction in state funding, which leads to an increase in our budget. Said I wanted to talk a little bit about tuition because it is a substantial decrease, something that we often don't see. This category represents the tuition we pay to public and private special education programs, state agency placements at the Waterford Country School, and Waterford students who attend magnet and charter schools for the base tuition costs. Most of these placements go up incrementally each year. So to see a decrease is very good news. Even with this incremental rate increase year over year by magnet providers, we are budgeting $171,000 less in our tuition lines for next year. This is due to many efforts to keep students in our district. We are seeing reductions in the number of students attending certain schools of choice, and we're reducing our allocation for students attending the Waterford Country School as well. I want to share some of those tuition reduction strategies with you. We do direct mailing and contact to magnet school families to make sure they understand what our schools offer, because that changes over time, and they may not always be aware of what we offer. I talked about the launch of our college and career pathways. We do regular marketing to our community, such as newsletters, a greater social media presence, regular contact with the day. Things such as 8th grade parent nights, smarts nights at CLNS, and we are forming partnerships with Atlantic Broadband and Electric Boat to provide insight into internships and recommended paths for students. These strategies are paying off. Other purchase services. The main increase in this line is to support social studies field experiences in the social studies curriculum that was approved last spring. $25,000 will support those authentic learning experiences that are aligned with our new social studies curriculum. The other part of the increase are rate increases on our service contracts, things such as our fiscal accounting system, time and attendance system, and maintenance contracts. Instructional supplies, many lines in this object are level funded or reduced. The greatest increase is in software, and this is due to two factors. It's due to increases on current products that we are using, price goes up. Know that we do a usage analysis each year, and we do eliminate underutilized products. The other part of this increase is to support data and assessment tracking software, which is a clearly defined goal in our strategic plan. This software will allow us to collate data from dozens of different sources that we have now. It will allow us to collate that data in one succinct place, thus allowing us to have data dashboards for our district, our schools, departments, and grade levels, and ultimately allow teachers at the classroom level to have a complete profile of their students' needs and be better able to plan instruction to meet those needs. Notable on this slide of operation and maintenance of buildings are the slight increases in fuel oil and a larger increase in propane, which has increased significantly in the market. Maintenance repair items have increased slightly to better reflect yearly actuals. I do want to point out $31,000 of the increase in this line is due to the reduction in community use of school funding. So if you do the math, the offset accounts for the majority of the $31,000. Again, it's a concept I wholeheartedly support. Textbooks, library books, and other supplies. Basically, we see flat funding. in this area as we continue to support curriculum renewal cycles and we continue to pursue digital resources whenever appropriate. Equipment, slight increases to reflect historical actuals and maintenance equipment. You might recall last year we reduced this line by nearly $60,000 in relation to our tech plan funding. Dues and fees, primarily due to rate increases, we did eliminate 2 dues that were not being utilized to their full capacity. The largest increase, which is about $2,000, is to currently Oswegatchie uses a student behavior tracking software that has proved to be very beneficial. They've piloted that for several years now, and we're expanding that out to the other 2 elementaries in the middle school to better track student behavior and allow us to target interventions to students who need it. I've shared this information on per pupil expenditure the last 2 years I've presented to you, and I do so again this year. Waterford's per pupil expenditure for FY17, which is the latest data, we won't have FY18 data until July 1, ranked 110th of the 169 towns in the state. This is a drop from the 100th in FY16. The point in showing this slide is to reiterate the district's commitment of the economic realities facing towns such as Waterford, and particularly the loss of certain funding streams. Our team is mindful of the fiscal uncertainty, and our schools continue to perform at high levels with the budget that we are allocated each year. We continue efforts to provide the best education possible by pursuing grant monies and partnerships that benefit our students, opportunities that we may not be able to afford otherwise. We do pursue formal grant opportunities whenever we can. Many of these grants are written by our staff on their own time. You can see the wide variety of grant funding we receive. And actually, Mr. Osmond just told me we received another $5,000 today from the Connecticut Arts Council to support visiting artists at Oswegatchie. This year, grants total over $141,000, now over $146,000, from 19 different sources. This is a 48% increase over last year. Last year, we were looking at about $95,000 in grant funding. So again, we continue to pursue grants. To put this into perspective, if this $141,000 was in our budget, it would be a 0.3% increase to the Board of Education budget. Again, these are opportunities that our students might not otherwise have. The Waterford community has a tremendous amount of pride in the school system. Many families live in this community because of the school. Our team is proud of our students. We have wonderful students who work hard each day. Our students give back to the Waterford community each year by volunteering tens of thousands of hours. Over the years, Waterford has been able to build a wonderful school system with a wide array of programs and offerings for the students and families that attend school here. As evidenced by the smiling faces of the students on the slide, we know our students are proud of the programs they partake in each day. Personally, I'm extremely proud of our staff, and I know all of you are as well. We have teachers that work hard each day to engage our students. Our team is always striving to do their best. We have a strong leadership team in place that I respect immensely and enjoy working with. Our support staff, who often work behind the scenes, are always eager to learn more and do whatever it takes to help the district move forward. We are all proud of our schools. We have 5 beautiful school facilities, and it is a great credit to this town and the community recognizing the value of investing in its students and faculty and providing them great places to teach and learn each day. This budget was developed to be mindful of the challenging economic context, but still allowing our district to progress. I believe this proposed budget fulfills the mission of our district, supporting high aspirations for students, developing them into responsible citizens, and prepared to contribute and succeed in a complex society. This budget will allow us to continue to innovate. Our team is proud to work in this community, and we are fortunate to have a Board of Education that promotes and supports an environment where we can collaborate, innovate, and educate. I look forward to our discussion And I thank you for your support and believing in our staff, students, and families. Mr. Chair, that is the overview.
Thank you, Tom. I would think that we'd want to save our questions or comments at the detailed review of the budget, so why don't we just go right to that, Tom?
I'm sure many of you have questions. I gave you a general overview with some specificity around the budget. As is the case any year, obviously with salaries and benefits, the vast majority of our budget is driven by contractual and fixed costs. Happy to begin to entertain questions and comments from the board.
Are there any at this point? Or we have to wait for the detail section? Okay, let's just go into the details. Sure. We'll figure out questions then.
See an executive summary up front. Move to the section called Budget Details, 18-19 budget. This is instructional services. Again, this is primarily the salaries for our certified teachers, administrators, and then tutors. It comprises about 50% of the entire budget. We are seeing an increase, obviously, over last year. Again, it's a net decrease of 1.3 FTEs, reducing a 0.8 phys ed and a 0.5 social studies at the high school.
We'll get to the detail on you gave us the class sizes, Tom, the historical, but last year you provided us with a breakdown of Clark Lane and high school sections. I'd like to see those again, if that's possible.
We are working on that. My hope is to get that to the board tomorrow.
Okay. You did too. The other question is with the 0.5 social studies. I had thought last year when we dropped at the middle school we were going to see more than a 0.5. We had talked about the social studies at the high school. Is there any other departments that we can take a 0.5 from?
Currently at the high school we have 2.5 social studies teachers. We are reducing one of those. We're fortunate to have a retirement in social studies, so it's a shift of a person out of that position.
Okay.
It is a cut.
So it'll be attrition, it won't actually...
It's attrition, correct.
Is there any possibility of that in the science department, or the math, or the English departments?
We're happy to go through. I mean, we've done an analysis internally of class sizes within those. When you look at enrollment over time, we're just starting to see the drop in district enrollment hit the middle school. We cut 2 classroom teachers last year. We're cutting a PE teacher at the middle school next year. That trickle is going to take another two years, and again, our hope is to get you middle school and high school class size data tomorrow, so we can have a robust discussion next Thursday. But it's going to be probably another 2 to 3 years to really see that impact at the high school level.
Chris, did you have a question?
I did. I'm on, if you're right, we're on page 8, but I'm jumping to page 10 at the bottom, the last line item under social workers. Am I reading it correct that you're cutting a 0.5 position in social workers? And can we talk about that for a minute?
We are not cutting a social worker, so I'm glad you asked the question. The reduction we see in that line is we will have a year-long, long-term sub at one of our schools for a social worker who is going to be out next year. So the sub-social worker that's going to work for us next year is at a significantly less salary than our current social worker. So we are not reducing services.
Thank you. All set.
Marcia?
If we're going to have a sub for the entire year, is that sub going to be qualified?
Yes, there'll be a certified social worker. Mrs. Malone assures me of that.
Any other questions or comments on this series? Okay.
Move on to support services. This category represents our non-certified staff, so that would include secretaries and clerical, maintenance and custodians, our professionals certainly, food service, which is self-funded, and a variety of other staff, including our IT department.
Question? On page 14, the summary, can you talk to me about what a high school coach does at 1.25?
Sure. So that are these are instructional coaches,
Right,
not
right.
athletic
No,
coaches.
I do
So I
know.
just want to make for the audience and whatnot. So the makeup of coaches at the high school, and I'll let Craig really talk about their role. We have a part-time, well, no, it's a full-time tech coach that's split between the middle school and high school. So that's part of the FTE. That's really the .25. And then we have a .5 literacy coach and a .5 mathematics coach. The other half of those jobs are teaching classes, normal sections of instruction. Craig can provide a little bit more background. Certainly, I know through the years we've done board presentations, but I want you to...
Our tech coach teaches daughter at the middle school computer class. And then Donna is her time as a Million High servicing teachers as instruction coach for technology. So any teacher that really wants to use technology, then she will work right in the classroom with them, coordinate planning time to learn different items as we're rolling out in the future a new web page. They'll be the key kind of professional developer to provide that training. Our language arts coach teaches half-time, some intervention classes and some English classes, and then as half-time to be the coach, and that coach is within the English department, as well as, social studies and science. So a lot of her work this year is really with the science department, with how to infuse, Common Core literacy within that. And the math coach is, again, half-time teaching math, and then half-time kind of coaching. I've met with him today on really looking at kind of Algebra 1 courses and how can we really, change our curriculum. He's researching by getting out to various districts to look at that, bringing back that information and working with the department head to really draft plans in the future. So in addition to the normal coaching within the math department around making sure that the quality of instruction is coherent up there. So the department head and the coach regularly talk. I think his next 3 weeks is going to be looking at, the flipped classroom concept at the high school and seeing if all teachers are kind of doing it in a similar way that's giving us more time in the class on the harder application kind of tasks and flipping the stuff that you could really kind of read about and maybe learn an instructional video to kind of prepare them for the class. The better use of classroom time.
On a daily basis.
Yes.
Thank you, Craig. On a daily basis, they're co-planning with teachers, modeling lessons, co-teaching with teachers, with classes of students. So, it's an involved instructional position for sure.
I certainly agree with that, because I know we have some big initiatives at the elementary and the middle. I just wondered how modeling for high school teachers is going.
Yeah, you can talk about what we're doing specifically with math.
Yeah, the 65-35 split. So, high school teachers know their content very well, and sometimes they might spend a little more time on the lecturing end. And so to really calibrate, who's doing the work, what's the lesson design look like, is key to really truly understanding numeracy. And the coaches, because the coach is getting into the classrooms to actually work with the teacher one-on-one, he knows the direction of the department because he's a member of the department, that he can really kind of collaboratively coach some teachers that may be struggling in certain areas and want that professional development support. So I do still feel that this is a proper amount of FTE time at the secondary level, especially until we, have telltale signs, say in numeracy, that we're
making gains.
Yes, kicking in.
Thank you, Craig.
Craig?
These are coaches, is there any kind of overlap between them and the department heads you see, or?
Yeah, I mean, so certainly the overlap, if you think about a Venn diagram, would be in setting the direction for the department. I think it's a collaborative between the coach and the department head. I think where the coach can provide that individual kind of one-on-one PD for the teacher. The department head is running the PLC meetings, kind of setting the direction, and then the coach is really making sure that, in a math department of 10, all 10 teachers are really at the same instructional level and academic level and working with their students the same way.
I always get concerned about the cost of that, and are we really getting a benefit? Are the teachers, talking about teachers who are highly trained teachers and they're coming to coach them, sometimes I always question that, I guess, and just to ensure that we're getting, more bang for our buck, I suppose.
Yeah. So, Tom earlier said if we're not moving forward, then we're stagnating or possibly moving backward. If this was a business world, it would be how much is being spent on research and development. So even though we employ highly trained teachers, it's not to say that there are not new best practices ever emerging or evolving, and who's kind of bringing that to the department, sharing that, and then beyond just the theoretical, shouldn't we be doing this, kind of the hardest thing is to invoke change. And so that's the practice, that's the planning, the co-teaching, getting back to work with the teachers to make sure that what's good research is actually being applied within the classrooms in Waterford. And that's why I do think that there is a very valuable use of instructional coaches.
Would we see more benefit by increasing professional development and letting the department head maybe take on some of these other functions?
So the department head does get an extra planning period off and a supplemental pay stipend. That additional planning period doesn't necessarily mean that they are able to schedule themselves into all classes because they do teach. And with professional development, we can be hiring external consultants to come in and work with our teachers on a regular basis, or we have instructional coaches to work with our teachers on a regular basis. The real mindset for highly effective professional development is that ongoing PD. So the big get everyone in the auditorium and listen to a speaker for 2 hours and then not really follow up with it is not a best practice model for professional development. And that's where really instructional coaches are a key. They are a major factor in professional development. So one of the reasons why you haven't seen increased requests on the PD line is because we do have those coaches to kind of mitigate increasing the PD line.
Mr. Hauser, I don't know if you had anything to add that Mr. Powers or myself didn't hit, but...
Yes, one or two things. First of all, the literacy coach and the math coach, they do fulfill a slightly different function. Our literacy coach actually is our English department chair. And because we put a lot of effort into stressing the idea that regardless of subject area, every high school teacher is a teacher of literacy skills, we find that she's working a lot outside of the department. And so if you go by her office, you may see a social studies teacher in there, science, an elective area. So it's really, for her, about embedding those literacy skills and reinforcing those literacy skills with people who weren't trained in those as part of their background. And having that daily opportunity to consult with her is very valuable for them. With math, our math coach and our math department chairs are two different faculty members. And as Mr. Howard pointed out, the math department chair is teaching essentially a full class load, which means his availability to get into classrooms is more limited. But with the math coach, he's got more unscheduled time, and you'll find him in, for full blocks, working with people, co-teaching with them, modeling a particular instructional skill, evaluating, like Mr. Powers said, when are we getting a value out of flipped instruction versus traditional instruction versus blended instruction, and helping teach those specific skill sets to teachers that they otherwise wouldn't have the time necessarily to really research and evaluate the results of one versus the results of another. And we're seeing this year a lot of benefit from those types of approaches with the math coach, as well as some really deep analysis he's been doing on our PSAT and SAT results that have led to some interesting conclusions about how to better prepare kids for those tests. And we think we're going to see in the near future and really improved test scores.
Jody?
That's what I was going to ask you, Andre, because I think a math coach would come in would be really beneficial to help with the SAT scores. And I'm happy to hear that, because the SAT, that type of math is different from the math that the students are learning for the SBAC tests and things like that. So it'll be good that, that the math coach can help the math teachers gear the questions that they're doing, problems that they're doing more towards an SAT test rather than, the other type of test.
How do we ensure the expertise of the coaches?
Yeah. So, one of the things is I do have a retired supervisor come in and work with coaches on the art of coaching, because working with adults is a slightly different skill set than working with kids. And how do you gently but consistently invoke the change process with adults is also a bit of an art. And so they do have regular contact about every 6 weeks with that person.
Within our system?
Yeah.
We don't hire somebody else.
We hire just a consultant to work kind of with the coaches in general to kind of give them that sort of training.
From Learn or something like that, or?
Learn, yeah.
Mr. Powers, you certainly
I do meet with the coaches as well,
on a regular basis.
and oftentimes it's kind of a little bit about administration 101, like, okay, well, how can you kind of make this change? And oftentimes the change process mirrors the grieving process, so we kind of have to know the peaks and valleys of it, and how can you better manage that so that we can have our staff mindfully and gracefully kind of go through the change process, because that's something that's constant in our profession.
Evaluations of teachers are done by the department heads and the administration?
So evaluations of teachers are done by administration. Department heads can be used if there's some content issues, because our administrators were once teachers too, and they might not be as versed in one area or the other if we're talking about the nuances of the content, but that would be the only time where department heads would play a role in evaluation.
Do our department heads have 092s?
They do, or 105s. 105 is a department head, so we allow either certification for a department head. A coach, we really want to separate from the evaluation process, so they are used as a resource and a true formative coach with a nexus, peer coach, a nexus from that summative evaluation. But certainly many of the principals have teachers' SLOs nested with supportive coaches.
Chris, what is the number, and maybe this is for Mr. Mancini, what's the number break out to for the coaches? What's the number with the coaches or without the coaches, just for the sake of argument? Ballpark.
Almost $1 million. What page is that? What page is that?
Page 8, top right-hand side, on the right side. That's all the coaches.
Right.
Yes, all.
That's all, pre-K to 12.
Yeah, so I'm gonna blame my newness to the board. Is there some type of job description or outline for these coaches? Because I'm having difficulty, department head, teacher, coach, so I'm a little unclear on where that is, how it's structured.
Sure.
So maybe a little more detail, because it is a pretty big dollar amount.
And the credentials that go along with it.
Yeah, and they're not under evaluation, and that, so they're evaluated, they just aren't in charge of evaluating.
Who evaluates the coaches?
The principal.
Okay. But they get evaluated just like everybody else.
They absolutely do.
Yeah, because they're teachers.
Yeah. And of course, their SLOs are at the teacher level, even though they might be working with a different teacher's class.
Greg?
I was going to ask you that, and it's not an immediate thing, but at some point maybe if we saw we see the schedule just to get an idea of how that works, it gives a better
Yeah, we can put together what a typical day looks like.
Well, overall, like maybe for the whole department, say, we have to do it, but I think just kind of what's the load?
Sure.
I just have more of a comment than questions, but I'm just concerned that in a financially precarious climate that might be a luxury to a point that we can't afford on some levels. And I have talked to some teachers who say they sometimes don't have time to meet with them, or they feel, like Craig said, it's a tough process to ingrain into the school, but that they feel uncomfortable with it, which I get change is difficult. So
I would say, having been here 3 years, the uncomfortableness factor is probably minimal in terms of the overall percentage of 250 teachers. Certainly understand the challenging economic climate. Again, it's in my recommended budget. I see it as a necessity if we want to continue to move forward as a district. It is under the umbrella of professional development and improving professional practice. The substitute for that is to spend that money on consultants. So somebody has to do the work of teacher practice. So if it's not our people, you're not going to realize a dollar for dollar savings, because somebody has to do that work on a daily basis if we want to continue to progress as a district. But certainly, the ultimate decision of the budget is the board's.
Any other questions?
on the talented and gifted teachers, are they all at where are they?
Yeah, so our talented and gifted teachers really now are at the elementary level.
So the 1.5, is a half at every elementary?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
so,
all.
last year was the last year phase out of kind of the middle school thread of TAG as we kind of recalibrated what TAG was. We now have kind of the electives at the middle school, and certainly the honors and AP classes at the high school for our precocious learners. So we're sort of mentally and academically feeding them that way. At the elementary level, we're apprised of the enrichment model that we have at the elementary.
Go ahead.
Tutors, regular ed, 85,700. Where are they? All throughout the district? And how are they used?
So some of those, and Mrs. Malone, I know could speak to some of this. We do use tutors for from time to time students who may be, let's say they're injured and they have to be instructed at home for a number of.
Is that what it is? Really?
At times.
We also have. Right.
To support students who need more specialized help in credit recovery.
So regular ed students in need of more intensive intervention. So instead of a study hall, they're going for targeted intervention services.
Don't their regular special ed teachers do that for
These are regular ed students.
Oh, these are regular ed students, okay.
Any other questions? Okay, Tom, move forward.
Sure. Support services. These are non-certified staff. These are our building and grounds, IT, clerical, paraprofessional.
Give us a page, Tom.
Sure, we're on page 17. 16 and 17
Yep.
are the overviews, and then line item detail follows. Is there any questions on this section?
Monitors, are they the bus monitors?
So, we do not have bus monitors. I think you're referring to, give me,
Page Part-time 17. school staff. Part-time school staff monitors.
so these that would fall under, are those, does that encompass the recess monitors?
Well, those are above it.
Those
The
are
playground
playground
aids would be there. So,
Cafeteria monitors.
oh, okay, so they are the cafeteria monitors
okay.
for middle
Okay.
and high school, or just middle? Yeah, middle and high school. And that has then freed up teachers from doing that duty period to teaching in lieu of a duty under-enrolled class, which I think is a much better return on investment for teachers being able to teach those under-enrolled classes.
But it is costing us something, because we always thought that was a nice wash. It's not. It's not a wash, because now we're paying somebody to take their duty.
Well, when you look at, and we can get you the data on the number of under-enrolled classes, Mr.
Yeah,
Hauser may
it
not
far
know.
exceeds that, but the point taken, yes.
Do teachers not at the elementary school for playground aids, they don't stay out with their students as part of the duty?
Believe it or not, that's been a long-standing collective bargaining item that's been within their contract since before I started
That's amazing.
here in Waterford. So,
Got it, but
But the monitors for the high school level and the middle school level, that's keeping teachers in the classroom. They're not getting an extra prep in lieu of them doing
they're
it.
actually not
they're
getting
taking
extra
a class
prep.
of 6 kids.
So, it is
Up
allowing
to 12.
It is allowing the middle school to offer some electives. We have, I think, 22 different electives, which would be in lieu of a duty. And at the high school, the majority of our math teachers do an intervention block, we call it Math Lab, with students to really give them that true guided study hall practice in math. We also have literacy labs for the language arts, and then we have a number of teachers that elect to do an undersubscribed class in lieu of a duty.
Troy, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Tom, could you explain to me the overtime
Sure. Which
on
page?
it? I'm on page 20.
Sure.
How does that work? Are those fixed actual costs, or is that money there just in case you need it?
So these line items encompass overtime. So if we think about custodians and maintenance, so if we have graduation, for example, requires setup and breakdown, those types of instances. Snow removal is a separate line, which is the bottom line. If we have a server break over the weekend or email go down like it did last weekend, right, Ed? And an IT personnel has to. So it's more for the spur of the moment, unanticipated work that we need out of staff, and that would include, tech, primarily custodians and maintenance, and some at the clerical level.
And those costs are negotiated through contracts?
The rate is
Yeah,
negotiated.
because
Yes.
it went up quite a bit, so, okay.
Marcia and then Jody.
Along those same lines, I'm assuming that I could be wrong. The one that Joy was just talking about, those are the same on page 17 on building overtime and building substitutes? Is that the same type of...
The line items are encompassed on page 17 in those lines, yes.
So that building overtime, more than, and the substitutes are all, the substitutes are because of illness or something like that, but the overtime is quite substantial, and that's when we don't have the staff to rotating on a basis that they're encompassing anything but snow days and stuff like that to make almost $100,000.
Specifically, we have to look at custodians. We eliminated the custodian position last year, so we have actually shrunk our workforce. Our ability to cover other buildings is definitely diminished. It's a slight increase in the overtime that allows us not to backfill that position. At least that was the general thought last year when we did this.
So our staff is decreased, but our overtime is increased. Correct. Because we don't have...
But not even close to what that salary was.
Okay.
Majority of that, overtime for snow removal is about $45,000, so $45,000 of that is snow removal.
Wow.
I just wanted to make a comment that I think our overtime would be 10 times more than this, but I'm not sure Joe or whoever, in their contract now, they have it fixed where maintenance workers work Wednesday through Monday or whatever, so they're not going to get overtime on the weekends like they used to.
Right.
So they've had a lot of cost initiatives, in here, so it's not...
A number of years ago, predates me, the district made a very intelligent decision to have a Wednesday through Sunday custodial maintenance crew. So we didn't always have to pay overtime on weekends.
Also, on page 17, the reading and math paraprofessionals. Do they have some kind of, are those tutors, and do they have some kind of special training in reading and math, or?
So they are paraprofessionals, so they're not tutors. They fall within the paraprofessional union. And in terms, they do partake in professional development. They work with either a math interventionist or a reading interventionist side by side, which is a common model in school districts. On the computer paras, we do not have computer teachers at the elementary level.
Right.
So computer paras fulfill that responsibility.
Right. It was more the reading and math, but I just wasn't sure of what their
So,
expertise
obviously, when we try to hire the person that has the most sort of ability within that content area, whether it be reading or math, and then our interventionists really spend a lot of time
getting up to speed.
Yeah, and over the years really have built them into quite an asset. And they really do the Tier 2 intervention, leaving the interventionists to do the Tier 3 with the tougher academically challenged children.
And the only other thing I have on page 17 is that auditorium manager from last year. I still have a problem with $52,000 to manage our auditorium. But I'm thinking that the tech department can somehow get in there and do something for that. But that's just my own opinion on that. And I understand the feelings of everybody from last year that, we have a lot of equipment there, but we have a lot of equipment in a lot of other places too.
No, that is a shared service with the town in a sense. That position covers a lot of town events as well, so it wouldn't affect only the board.
Does that go into our community then? Do they pay part of their fee?
No, there's no offset from the town, I don't believe, in particular to that position, but there's other positions on the town side that we don't contribute towards either, but it is a position that services town events.
Okay. Oh, town events, I got you.
Yeah, nighttime, anything that's used by the town at night.
Yeah.
Other questions on support services? Move forward.
Employee benefits, page 23. Obviously, the most significant line item in this category is health insurance. With our health benefits advisor, we are projecting slightly over a 5% increase in this line. Again, final number, or close to final number, hopefully in the near future, but we're confident in that number. And then the next biggest driver is FICA, which is the employer's responsibility, payroll tax, things like that. Again, overall, pretty much everything but health insurance is level funded or down. Happy to answer any questions in this category.
Board members, any questions?
What's shoe reimbursement?
Sure.
And
So
who
within
does that go to?
so within the custodial contract,
Oh, they're still code? We pay for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions?
sure, it's contracted services. Comprised of 5 different areas: instructional services, professional development, curriculum development, other professional technical services, and legal services. Biggest driver here, obviously, is other professional technical services, as I briefly talked about earlier in the presentation, primarily being driven by substantial rate increases in specialized services provided to special ed students at magnet and charter schools. Happy to answer any questions.
Great.
That's something we don't really talk about, is kind of the dynamic nature of the budget. Is there after once it's set that as kids move in, especially special needs and special ed that move in and out of district, how that affects our budget too, through the cost savings or cost increases?
Yeah, it's a great point, Craig. I'll give you a couple examples. So within other professional technical services is our nursing costs. So we contract out our nursing costs to VNA. Believe it or not, by statute, we're responsible for providing nursing services at private schools that are within the geographic boundaries of Waterford. There is a new private school in Waterford that is a driver in the nursing line. Give you another example of the uncertainty. We had a youngster move into our district this fall that by their IEP and high medical needs is IEP for a full-time one-on-one nurse. One of our elementary schools, we had over the course of the summer, 4 diabetic students moved in one school. We had to add a half-time nurse at $36,000. So there is a lot of variability in this line from time to time. Thank you for bringing that up.
Other questions?
Sure, on transportation. This is our regular and special ed transportation and medical transportation. Our contract with STA runs 5 years. We're entering year 2 of those 5. That's a contracted 3% increase. You can see fuel is level funded due to rates we locked in at last year. Happy to answer any questions.
Chris?
Does the bus company or the district evaluate utilization of the buses to see if if a route has got empty or low usage of buses or things like that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm actually going to let Joe touch upon that a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, we do go through it. We make sure it fits within our budget context. I have started to challenge her for next year, explaining that I'd like to take 2 buses off of our routes. But yeah, a review does go on.
Is it a yearly?
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I was going to ask the same, just to see a lot of half-empty buses, but then I didn't know if there was a statute where we have to provide a certain amount of buses based on where children live, regardless if the parents drive them or not, or, I'm not sure if there's some sort of...
More because we have 4 bus runs. So we have a high school run, a middle school run, an elementary run, and then the Friendship School run. The elementary run is where we need all of our buses, and so, you may see less than full buses at the high school level, but we have to pay for a certain amount of buses to complete our elementary runs, and then we need to do the high school runs efficiently enough so that we get to the middle school and the elementary and the Friendship School on time. And so if we were to maximize the high school run, the high school buses, we would geographically be making their runs too long, and it would kind of back up the other tiered runs. So that's the balance.
Sure. I just wasn't sure if there's a mandate whether your parents choose to take your kids to school or not. I'm Mr. Sonics every morning. Or not, you know, and I just wondered because I didn't know if there was something legally required that we have to provide it.
Anything else on transportation? Okay, insurance.
Insurance, which are fire, property, liability, and other insurance. Other insurance would be things like our insurance that covers our athletes and student activities. We're seeing favorability. This line is down over $18,000 from this current fiscal year. There's rarely questions that lines go down, but...
I just had a comment. So my children play lacrosse, and every year they have to register actually with the National Lacrosse Association, which actually provides an insurance type of, you know, I pay for that. I just wondered if there's something along those lines for the different sports that maybe there's something nationally that could correlate or tie in or help to offset some of the costs for that.
Yeah, we really have an overarching policy with KERMA, which is our liability policy. Joe could probably touch on that a little bit more.
For student athletes, I believe they're covered if they get injured in the course of whatever sport they're playing or gym class. That's about it.
They are covered in gym class as well?
I believe so.
Sure. Yeah. I know that for a fact. My daughter ended up in the emergency room. I was covered.
And it is unfortunately that specific. It's either gym class or sport.
Anything else on insurance? Communications?
Sure. This line item, as I said in the PowerPoint, the increase is really due to a decrease in a state grant called E-rate that helps us offset the cost of communications. The majority of that increase is due to the decrease in state funding. This helps pay for some infrastructure things such as phones and whatnot, postage and advertising level funded.
Any questions?
Is our phone system set? Are we at a point where we might be looking at grade?
We did a VIOP system as we were putting in the new school, so they're riding on the backbone of our infrastructure, our web infrastructure, so I think we're really up to speed when it comes to that.
Anything else? Okay.
Tuition, this encompasses many different lines. Our magnet tuition lines for students who go to magnet schools for their base tuition costs. It also encompasses out-of-district special ed placements at public placements, i.e. it could be a specialized LEARN special ed program. LEARN is a public provider, so when you see things like special ed public, it would be within that line. If a student required a private placement, perhaps their IEP and need is such that they attend a private program, that's encompassed in this line, as well as costs associated with the Waterford Country School when the state places a child there, because it's within our geographic bounds. There is some cost associated with that. With that said, we have reduced that particular line based on trend data.
And lots of reductions. Sorry, go ahead. Lots of reductions because we're keeping more kids in the district.
Yeah, you look at the Friendship School regular line. If you look at the data, we're down about 100 students at the Friendship School, many of them in our pre-K room, but our elementary principals have also done a wonderful job making direct contact with families, letting them know that we also offer neighborhood kindergarten services. So the biggest reduction in this particular area is associated with the Friendship School. Also Ledyard VOAG, not to be unnoticed.
Yeah.
We typically were sending 7 or 8 students a year to Ledyard VOAG. that we're seeing that trend down to 1 or 2 a year, hence a sizable reduction in that line.
Yeah.
I think Marcia's ahead of me.
No. Do the percent on page 40 correlate to the number of students on page 36, correct?
Yeah, so the tuitions are based on the number of students that we're projecting to attend those schools, described in not only the narrative, but also the charts on 42 and 43.
So, are we going down in all areas, or is it just the Friendship School and Ledyard BOAG, and are we increasing some of the others? Because it seems as though some of them, either I was reading it wrong or something, I don't know. And we even have one kindergarten going to Jennings School?
Yeah.
We do. So New London is an all-magnet district, so any child in Connecticut can go to a New London public school. If you look at the charts on 42 and 43, it shows historical attendance at these schools.
And so, because any child can go to a magnet at any time, we really just use a rolling 3-year average to kind of get the census data. And that's why, as Tom indicated on page 42 and 43 of those charts. So, you know, it's our best guess approximation for who may want to elect, because by state law, any child could elect to go to a magnet, and we'd have to provide that.
And we're still contacting those parents saying, you know, look, this is what we have available too.
We do direct mailing.
I remember we used to do that.
Yep.
And we're still doing that, right?
Yep.
And that's why the numbers are trending lower, because that's working, but we still need to allot for some tuition if parents want to make that election.
And if parents choose to homeschool their kids,
Yeah.
do we have any financial responsibility?
None at all.
We do
None
not.
at all, okay.
Jim, did you have a question, or Marcia?
Well, I think Craig kind of answered it. So how do you know how many kids are going to a school the next year? Like Ledyard BOAG is 2. Are there 2 kids that said I'm going there next year?
So we have one that we know, and we're assuming because of the grade level that one will stay, and so then statistically there could be another one.
Okay.
Hence the 2. I mean, some of it is kind of like weather forecasting.
Yeah.
With a greater or lesser degree of success.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a guess out of the dark. It's really based on historical averages.
And am I correct in saying that there's only a certain percentage from each town that each magnet can actually accept? So,
well, magnet schools have to keep a balance of sort of suburban and urban. So that's correct. But that would be on the magnet school lottery system to make that census of no more than a 45-55 split.
So will we have harder, faster numbers once because I know the lotteries a lot of them have taken place already, and they're either deciding whether they want to go there or not.
We have students who elect to go to magnet schools all the way up.
So the first day of school.
Even through September.
Yeah, the flashpoint for the state of Connecticut is October 1. So on that day, who's ever at a magnet, we have to pay for. Who's ever not, we don't have to pay for. On October 2nd, if they go to a magnet, we don't pay for them. But on October 2nd, if they come back, we lose the tuition. That's just the state rule. So we'll know exactly on October 1.
Okay, great.
Do we generate any tuition revenue?
Yeah, it's a good
Does
question.
anyone choose to come here?
Yeah, you know, we had one last year. We had 2 youngsters this year elect, actually 3, not full year tuition students, but it's minor dollars. Those dollars don't come to the Board of Education. Those go to the general fund of the town.
Okay.
It's not revenue for us, but it is revenue for the town.
Just one quick thing, going back to what you said, Craig, about the magnet schools. As of October 1st, whoever, we pay for any of our Waterford people to go there. If they get expelled or suspended for the entire year, we're still responsible
That's correct.
for their education and the tuition that we've already spent on them.
That is correct.
So we're double.
It's a double whammy.
But you're projecting the 44,600 increase, even though...
So, hold on, you gotta be cautious.
Okay, yeah, like,
Go in
explain
between
that.
the two pages.
Okay, sorry.
So, the backup pages 42 and 43, move up into actual. So that's why you see they're relatively close. The page before is budget to projection. So,
Joe, could you explain that again? I didn't understand
sorry, so page 42, if you look at 17,
Yeah.
18, and you look at the enrollment numbers.
Uh-huh.
Take the friendship school, right?
Right.
The top one. 25 is the actual enrollment. In our budget for last year, or the year we're in now, we assumed a much higher number. I think we assumed historical average of roughly 52.
Oh,
So that's why you're not seeing a tremendous decrease on that line. But if you go to the page before,
yeah.
when you go budget to projection, you'll see a significant decrease. So we're projecting we're going to go down $200,000.
Gotcha.
So the credibility in pages 42 and 43.
And that's where the weather forecast issue
Right.
is, right? When you plug the numbers in.
This is a better weather forecast because it incorporates the actuals that have changed this year.
Okay.
Now, having said that, our projection, if you look at it, this is not an overly conservative estimate. This is kind of right on.
Okay.
I'm not seeing extra heads planned anywhere.
Page 41.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Go to other purchase services.
Page 47.
Starts on 47, 48. The main driver in this line is really to support elementary field experiences that are part of the new social studies curriculum. Everything else is pretty much level. You do see some increase in contracted services, 590. That's really to support our fiscal accounting system, our time and attendance system, and service contracts that our maintenance department relies upon. But again, the main driver in this line deals with elementary social studies field experiences.
The 200 field trips, are they all social studies?
No, so those are part of our bus contract, and that's, those are used district-wide. Joe tracks those out of his office.
So that's just for the bus. This is...
Oh, okay.
Because these are integrated in our social studies curriculum, if there's admission fees to go to some of these field experiences, that's part of it, because it should be an assured experience because it's really embedded in the curriculum.
That is required to cover.
Some bus costs that would exceed the distance that our normal free trips would incur. Those are usually the upper elementary grades, and we want to have those consistent for the three schools so that each grade level is getting, one or two kind of robust field experiences a year, and they're each getting at least two, but some may be free because of the cost. We're trying to be conservative where we can.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Move on to page 50, instructional supplies. Again, I talked about the software in the support of the district strategic plan. Main driver here is to support data and assessment software to really begin to comb the data that we have in many different places on students into one succinct location to really allow us as a district, as a school, department or teams or grade levels, and ultimately the teacher. So again, beyond the software for the strategic plan, this category is nearly flat. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any?
Operation and maintenance of buildings are on page 55 and 56. Again, I mentioned this in the PowerPoint. These lines Of the 31,500, 31,000 of that is our increases due primarily to the community school offset. You see an increase in propane as well.
Where are we using propane?
Joe?
In all the kitchens,
all of them.
so all the kitchens have gas-fired stoves, and some of the offices have like the propane.
Yeah, there's some heating elements. Correct.
Mainly kitchens.
Yeah, so
And
steel
heated,
that's
We're not heating.
no, we're gonna use regular gas, right?
That's a lot of money for kitchens.
Do a lot of cooking.
Yeah, the rate substantially increased. That's driven by rate, not usage.
It's all rate. Yeah, it's all rate.
Go ahead.
Are there any long-term plans to get off of fossil fuels and start to save some money and incorporate some other alternatives?
Yeah, the move to I know that natural gas doesn't directly relate to your question, but getting Clark Lane off fuel oil and on natural gas will have significant savings. We're working with the vendor today, Eversource, on those calculations. I know Mr. Mancini, Mr. Miner, and the planning director, Abby Pearsall, have been in discussions around solar.
Right.
And pursuing that. We do have solar at Quaker Hill on a limited basis. And I know on February 15th you're attending a conference on microgrids and cogeneration plants.
Correct. Which, unfortunately, is still natural gas, but it's going to be a few years before we see a solar solution between us and the town. The town and the Board of Ed are locked into some long-term generation contracts. They do have liquidated damages on both of them. I think mine expires in 2 years, 10 months. Theirs is 4 years. So we'll be laying the groundwork on some potential projects. I've already spoken with Abby. She has some great ideas. But having said that, while we're in these contracts, you really can't terminate them.
Jody.
I know you probably get asked this question every year, but did we ever find out why the water and the sewer bill is Great Neck is more than...
Well, we have successfully spent thousands.
Trying to figure out
So we have not found the answer.
Doesn't make sense.
It's not the garden.
I know Mr. Sheen is going to ask this question in about a month.
We're 95% sure it's the garden, but
Well, we had the summer...
No, it's high all year. So over the past year, what we've done is for 3 week periods, about 2 or 3 times, we've done nightly checks where we're checking the meter to see if it continues running overnight. In the July and August time frame, we changed out all the valves in the entire building. What we were thinking is that the valves were actually sticking open for a longer period of time. We had the company, I forget the name of the company. Viola come out 2 or 3 times. There's not a problem with the meter. It is usage. So we're talking about installing additional meters in the facility that separate items that, specifically the garden.
No more vegetables for you, Joe.
I'll back up. We'll come up with a different excuse.
The valve change, you didn't see a decrease after you changed the valve?
The hard part about water is you see the bills 4 months after
I
the change, because they come in 3 months increments. Yes, we've seen a reduction. I can't guarantee that it's
It was that, right.
But again, we've definitely successfully spent thousands to hopefully save dollars.
Any other questions?
Next section, on page 65, 66, textbooks, library books, other supplies, again for, a line item that's just under $400,000, slight increase of about $2,800. Happy to answer any questions without any line item detail.
I did have questions. Do you have sort of a general on page 67 breakout of $125,000 in just large groupings But then on your detail page on 66, you're giving some monies into departments.
Yeah, so page 67, Nim, is when we talk about new textbooks, that's out of my office when it comes to
Like when we approve one here,
curriculum revision.
it comes out of the 125.
Yeah, and so the first year of implementation comes out of new textbooks after the board adopts the new instructional materials, and then, that's to last at least 5 years. And so if there are some missing or more needed books, or if there are consumables, then that's a building level budget after to make up the delta of that. And why it's, around the 125 is because usually we make motions at the board meeting in the month of May and June, and then we buy the textbooks out of the end of June budget and then the beginning of July budget so that they're all ready for teachers when they come back in August. And so that's why we try to keep the peaks and valleys from a textbook procurement flatlined by kind of setting what's that average barometer and using the two fiscal years to kind of fill the gap.
So with this, it looks like you'll probably have a big purchase in science from your revision cycle.
That's going to be the big...
That's going to be the big one this year? Okay.
And then, secondary high school English is also going to be doing their curriculum renewal, which may have some impact to that.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Anyone else?
On page 72, equipment, 72 and 73. Again, modest increase of $5,766. Biggest one is maintenance equipment, and that's really to reflect historical averages in that department.
Any questions?
75, dues and fees. Again, it's slight increases in some of the rates at the elementary level. Seeing an increase of $1,666, and that's to really bring the other schools in line with student behavior tracking software that Osagachi has used for how many years now, Chris? 3 years? 2 years?
We're in our fourth year.
Fourth year. So it's really proved beneficial. It would be pushing it out to the other.
Any questions? Okay. First, any general questions or comments from the board? From the audience? Questions, comments? Paul?
Someone can talk to me about the SRBI, the SRBI restructuring that you guys are going through. Can you talk about what goes on at the elementary school level with it? What goes on at the middle school? For the high school, how it works?
Sure, and this might be a good opportunity to hear from some of our principals. So I don't know if an elementary principal wants to really talk. Mrs. Long can certainly jump in, and Mr. Powers, but I think it'd be powerful if, Chris or Billy want to kind of talk about.
Sure, right. So the process really for SRBI is really looking at students who are in need of intervention. And so the very first part of our SRBI process is what we call Tier 1, which is like all students that we have all the things in place for the curriculum, whether it's math or reading there, solid there, and students who might be having difficulty in that, we look to, we do that again, we talk through our screeners, through math, through data, we were looking at students, again, with high school like single week, and discussing with students who are struggling and put maybe some interventions that might be in place there.
like Craig said before, might be working with a reading interventionist or a paraprofessional. With that on some reading interventions, and we monitor those interventions and see how well that student is performing. If they're starting to do better, we dismiss from that. If they're not, we continue that or try different interventions. And if they're not responding to that, then they would get more intensive intervention, more time to week, longer assistance programs, so that we're really hitting that and monitoring how those kids are doing along that.
So, in a nutshell, Paul, like there are three areas. So it's literacy instruction, numeracy or math instruction, and behavior. The first two, those academic pieces, when we were in school, we would have called them remedial teachers. And there's different levels of intervention. So classroom intervention, which would be tier 1, as Mr. Osmond said, then maybe working with a paraprofessional outside of the classroom for extra support might be tier 2, and then an intervention teacher might be tier 3 in those academic areas. And then when the secondary principals speak, they'll probably focus a little bit more on the behavioral aspects that are at their schools.
So at the middle, adding to what Chris said, we also have a level of study halls, what we call academic study. It used to be very large study halls, and now they're very small, specialized understanding. So it's a level where there's intervention in the classroom, there's intervention in an academic study. The next intervention would be a math or literacy intervention, and that might include a paraprofessional, that might not. And then in the area of emotional, social-emotional, that can include counseling, that can include academic study that has to do with behavioral issues, that can include work with social work or psychology.
And at the high school level, we have an organization called the CARE Team, which is our assistant principals, our guidance counselors, and some other related teachers who look at a lot of data about our students. With 850 students, you can't just necessarily guess who needs support. So they look at academic data, both performance in classes and performance on standardized tests like the math test and the SAT, as well as attendance data, behavioral referral data, and referrals from teachers for students who might need support either with the academics or the behavior. For the academics, we've restructured our study halls as well to really with the 9th to 10th grade do what we call a study academy, where we're teaching them executive functioning skills and study strategy skills to hopefully give them that tier 1 support where everyone gets some stuff that's going to make them more effective students. If they're noticing that they need more intense support with reading or math, during those study academies, we can pull kids out for a small group or individual remediation with an English social studies or math teacher. And then for the social emotional side, just like at the middle school, there's counseling whether individual or small group. We also have a program called Positive Foundations that's been developed for students who need a little bit more consistent, a little bit more intensive support with the social emotional side of high school, or who just need something briefly, just a sort of a touch base, get fine-tuned a little bit, and then get back into class. And so there's some students who are scheduled to it, and some students who drop into it. Hopefully keeping kids, on the right track towards success.
At the high school level, how much are the coaches involved in the SRP program?
The instructional coaches?
Yeah.
They do some of the intervention directly with kids, and a lot of work with either peer tutors who are going to then work with our kids for the academic intervention, or working with the teachers who will be doing the intervention, so that we're certain that there's a good technique for use.
Thank you.
Other questions from the audience? Bill?
You threw out in one of your slides, I forget which one, that you were using mastery-based learning. What is that?
Yeah, it's a good question. And this work is, and I know of a specific example I'd like Mr. Hauser to share in his science department, but it's really looking at a curriculum from a standards approach and whether or not a student is meeting that standard and at what proficiency level. And Andre, I don't know if you want to share, I know there's some great work going on in your science department, and really, I think giving that example would provide some context of what it looks like.
Okay. If you think about the way most of us were graded in high school, you got a certain percentage of points for homework, for class participation, for, raising your hands enough, and then a certain amount for demonstrating that you actually knew the content. And if you think about the whole idea of placing students on a bell curve, how well you did is relative to how poorly someone else did. Mastery-based assessment or standards-based assessment is the philosophy where you say, these are the things that should be learned in, for instance, the chemistry class. We've identified specific things you need to know, you need to be able to do, and all the assessments are focused on how well can you demonstrate that you know how to do this, that you have learned it, that you can put it into practice. And we've got a teacher, one of our chemistry teachers this year, who's really piloting a very strict mastery-based system where each student must demonstrate that they've mastered a skill before moving on to being assessed in another skill. If they don't master it, they've got to come up with a plan to work with the teacher to really address that skill and then demonstrate mastery again. I've had the opportunity to meet with some of the students in that class and ask them how they feel about it, and it's two results that you wouldn't expect to see together. One is that they feel a lot less stressed about testing, and the other is that they're learning a lot more content because they know exactly what they're expected to know and be able to do. The whole course is built around that, and they know that if they didn't get something, we're not just going to skip over it and hope that somehow it magically comes to you later. We're going to keep working at it with a plan that student has developed with the teacher to make sure that they really do understand it as they move on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's based on, you use the NASI curve, it's based on what the Common Core standard is for that particular subject and what you expect the students to be able to make that standard and helping them get to make that standard.
Exactly. Yeah.
Education like that, already like the Navy license version.
It's really focused on all of your assessment on what the students know and what are they able to do, as opposed to the consistency in turning in homework or how often they participated in a class discussion. Really focusing on do they know the chemistry. So that A in chemistry means they know 90+% of what you taught.
Have they memorized periodic table, right? Okay. And I got one question for the superintendent.
Sure.
In your first 2 or 3 slides, you talked about the major budget drivers and increases, and you had 2 different values for the contractual salary obligations and health insurance. On one slide, you had 575,928, and on the other slide, and in the book, you have 545,252. On health insurance, you had 251,140 on one slide, and then in the book, and on the other slide, you have 292,130.
Yeah, I think on the
consistency is whatever that's basically showing the same thing.
Yeah.
Young East Night, Young East Honey Night.
Yeah, I think on insurance, on one slide I was referencing insurance as a whole, which would include life, limited liability, fire, and things like that. And the other slide it really talked about.
It says specifically health insurance. That's why in both slides you said one of them was 140, and the other one's 292 and 34. They're both for health insurance.
Thank you. We'll take a look at that.
I'm sorry. That's what I'm trained to do. I'm trained to look at differences.
I understand.
Why is it different from that?
Other questions from the audience?
The rest I'll save for when the board finalizes.
All right, a motion to adjourn would be in order. Is there a second?
Second.
No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm not seeing the
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.